Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Godspeed Investors. I'm Edward Beck and
Mario de Lara.
he's our guest today. He's going to be interviewing me. He helps a lot with the videos and such, so he agreed to be the guinea pig to kind of ask me random questions. I'm not sure what he's going to ask me. So without further ado,
All right. So the first question I want to ask Edward is how did he got started in real estate?
how did I get started in real estate? Well, I've always kind of been around real estate because my dad, all right, I'll look at him. Jorge's telling me to look at you. So, okay, I was looking at the people. So, when I was a kid, my dad was in real estate. So I grew up in real estate, putting signs out. My dad would get mad if I said this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Stealing other people's signs at night as a kid. Yeah, the signs are always been competitive, but yeah, going to houses and seeing properties and such. Not as much as my son has seen, but quite a bit.
So
But
now that you're talking about signs, for the people that don't know what are you really talking about? What are those signs? What do they have? What kind of information?
well, it's a bandit sign. It's an illegal. Well, not illegal. It's generally against the city codes, and you put it out on the street corners, and it says things like "cash for houses," "I buy houses," "sell your house fast," things like that. Most cities have seen it. Our city's really cracking down on a lot of those signs. They just sent me an email today that they changed the sign ordinance again to try and make it more difficult for us to put signs. But let me expand on that. So I was around real estate a lot, but I didn't know anything about real estate. And then when I got to, I went to college, got out of college, came to my dad and I asked him, hey, I'm ready to come work for you because he was doing real estate investing. And he told me, no, son, I can't hire you. And I said, well, why not? He said, because you don't know how to sell. I said, I can sell, I had waited tables, pretty much middle school, high school, and through college. I waited tables. So I thought I knew how to communicate well with people, how to gain rapport, make friends fast. But he was right. I didn't know how to sell. So he sent me into the car business. I think one of the main reasons why he sent me in the car business is the way that he got hired into real estate was from somebody buying a car from him, liked the way he sold him the car, and took him out of the business, got him his real estate license, and taught him the business. Ironically, one of his cousins is one of my partners today, the guy that took out my dad out of the real estate business, which is kind of funny. So I went into the car business. He told me the first year I make over 50 grand. This was early 2000s. And he said the first year you make over. Okay. He's lowering it down over here. I was going to give Jorge a hard time now. It's going to be part of the videos. So, we love you, Jorge. Don't turn red. So, I went into the car business, and first year I made very little money. I made like 15 grand maybe. And you're working what they call in the car business. If you're in the car business, bell to bell. This was before the blue law. There was a blue law that came out later in the third year when I was working, and the blue law, what it said was that, yeah, he's getting mad about your phone. That Sundays you can't you can't work anymore because they were overworking the car salesman. So you were working 7 days a week, 10, 12-hour days. Not necessarily working. If you're in the car business, most of the time what you're doing is sitting around waiting for something to happen. But you're there, you're stuck there. They don't want you to leave, in case something happens. But so I did that for for 3 years. My second year I made like 17, and then halfway through my third year I was already over 50 grand. So my dad said, "That's fine. I can hire you out." So so I started working for him, and the first thing he had me do was start in the construction site. So I went from making, I don't know, what's 50 grand? What's 100 grand a year? What do you make?
Like 6, 7 every month.
Eight.
Eight.
8,000 a month. Now, granted, you get 30% of that taken out. So 83 divided by what's 10% is 800. So you take out another $2,000, give or take. So I was making 6 grand a month. Take home. So left making 6 grand a month, take home to $1,000 a month. So I could work for my dad in real estate. So I went, and the first things I did was I had to sweep the floors, I had to tear up tile, I had to lay sheetrock up here, tear out sheetrock, install insulation, tear up a cool deck. I did a pool in the backyard. I had to go and tear up. If you know what a cool deck is, it's like that funny textured concrete around a pool.
Mhm.
They call it a cool deck because concrete is slippery, and so we had to get a jackhammer and break it up, and then we buried that pool in the backyard. We did a lot. I did that for probably 6 years, and then after that, not 6 years, 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and then after that, I went into the sales side. So it was kind of funny the way that it happened. We had a deal went sour. We had 2 contractors kind of take advantage of my dad. He had one contractor. He did a roof that was improperly installed. Another contractor, he laid sheetrock in one of the houses, and he put 1/4 inch sheetrock. Okay, so there's different levels of sheetrock. You can do 1/4, 1/2 inch, and 3/4. Okay, I've never seen anything other than that. So he put 1/2 inch sheetrock, thinking he's going to save money. Installed it into the room, and you go in there and it's all wavy, right? It's because he put 1/4 inch sheetrock, and just a lot of things like that. So he was losing money on that deal, and he was all stressed out. I was stressed out because I was supposed to be the one there, and I didn't know everything that was going on because I was barely learning. And I get in the car with him. After a days of work, I'm all sweaty and smelly, and he goes, he has a check here on his center console. I said, "What's this?" And he's like, "Oh, I wholesaled the house." And I was like, "What's a wholesale?" And because back then, all you ever heard about was a buy and sell. Wholesaling didn't really even exist. So he says, "Well, what I do for houses that I get but I can't buy because I got too much going on is I sell it to an investor, and they pay me a fee." It was a check for 5 grand, I think. And I said, "Wow. And they gave you 5 grand for that?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "How long did it take you? How much time did it take you?" And he says, "Well, maybe 4 hours worth of work." I was like, wow, well, that's pretty good. I said, why don't we just do that? And we don't have the liability because we're just leaving a house that we're probably going to lose money on. We don't have to do all this. And we could just focus on that. And he's like, well, I don't know how that would work. And I said, we need to figure it out. So I revamped his whole business model and changed it to primarily, we didn't do any flips at all. And all we did was wholesales. And this was prior to the collapse, obviously. And we did it for a good solid 3 or 4 years. And most of our business came off of the foreclosure list, knocking doors, stuff like that. But we became the number one wholesaler in El Paso. We would wholesale 5 to 10 houses a month. The best month we ever did, we did 12 houses. And that was unheard of, man. We just owned all the marketing. We had 12 people on staff. We were huge. We did really, really well. And then the market collapsed, and that was it. But that's kind of how I got started. That's a long story, but that's kind of how it.
So you mentioned El Paso.
El Paso.
How does that work for you? It's a border city, Mexico. The language, I guess you're like a minority here, no?
Well, sí, soy güero, pero I mean, for you white speakers or Spanish, English speaker only, means I'm a white boy. But my grandparents, my great grandmother was Hispanic, so I have Hispanic family members. My older brother is Moreno, so if you don't know what Moreno means, it means he's dark skin, black hair, brown eyes, and like me, I'm Heinz 57 steak sauce. The whole idea of race in itself is weird for me because, if you look at your brother, you don't see somebody different, you see your brother. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And when I look at my little brother, who's more like fair skinned, kind of like Jorge over here, he's like fair skinned. He's like Mexican güero. What do they call this? I don't know. But
someday they're gonna see Jorge on the camera.
Yeah, no, they're gonna be scared. So I never really saw it, but it is difficult because sometimes like my Spanish is not perfect. It's not fluent. I can understand a lot, but I'm not fluent by any means. I wish I was. And when they see me, that those prejudice, they come out. You know what I mean? A lot of people that in El Paso were brought up to be afraid or to be wary of the white man or the rich white man or whatever. So those things make it difficult when you're talking to them to make a connection. And sadly, it's racism. There's racism both ways. Racism is not just something that comes from white people. It's just you're prejudging somebody based on the color of their skin, which it shouldn't be that way. You know what I mean? What did Martin Luther King say is, that he wished that there would be a time where his children won't be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character, right? So I see that, but it has been difficult. It's a border city. The culture's different. I've been here fourth generation. So I have a lot of roots in El Paso, but yeah, you see it. Because my mom is puro güero, means pure white. She's blonde hair, blue eyes. Her maiden name was Barnhart. I don't think you can get more white bred American than the last name Barnhart. Sorry, I live in a farming area. Sometimes tractors pass by. Mm-hmm. But my mom told me a story when she was younger, and I think this is why she kind of brought us up not to have any prejudice. Is on her, she used to go to this school that was in the valley. She went to Isleta High School and Isleta Middle. I think there's an Isleta Middle. And every day she'd walk home, and all the girls from the school hated her because she was güera, blue eyes, blonde hair, and they would throw rocks at her because they hated her, you know, and just because of her race, you know. So racism happens both ways, you know, and it's unfortunate because it's very destructive, you know. But that's why we were brought up not that way, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's difficult when you're in a border city. Border city is very competitive, very competitive. You know, the Hispanic people, they're very entrepreneurial. They're not. A majority of them want to own a business. They're not in the mindset of trying to work for somebody else. You know, you see it because they all got some side business going. Even if they're working in a business, every single one, the Hispanic people, they have some other side business. Either they make tamales and they sell them, or they're making piñatas, or they're making, you know, blankets or graduation gifts, or, you know, wedding arrangements. They've got some little going on, you know. So something on the DL that they're not paying taxes on. I dig that. Wait, I didn't say that on camera. No. Pay your taxes.
We're good to move on. Okay. So what separates you from other investors?
I think the number one thing I would say, if anybody were to watch the videos and our product that's coming out, that would, if they would get anything, it's the way that you go about doing your business is with the mentality of helping other people through problems. Because that's really, I think, what sets me apart is when I go to an appointment, I care about people. And if you go there just with the, you know, like all these other shows, they got this big wad of money and they're like, get rich quick, or they have what's this guy? What's that guy? Some guy. He's got a freaking $100,000 bill folded behind him in his office. That's his picture on his wall, and he's a buy and sell flip guy, right? Think if you're the motivated seller and you walk into this punk's office and you're losing your house to foreclosure, or your wife left you, or your husband cheated on you and left with some girl, moved to Mexico, or, you know, your husband died in an accident and you can't pay your house, or whatever, all the crazy crappy stuff that we deal with in my business, and you're gonna walk into there with this guy with his Armani suit and a freaking $100,000 bill on the back of the wall. How insensitive are you? You know, what kind of stupid person are you? That's because they're not really in the business, to be honest with you. That's what I think. Because that would not fly. You know, it would not fly. Having a $100,000 bill and you're there arguing with them over a couple $1,000s to buy their house. You know, because you have to make your margins. And that's really what the business comes down to. It comes down to margins, but you got to come at it from a place of helping people, you know. And it's not a charity, you know, it's a business, and it has to make sense. And you have to make your percentages, and you can't buy over. But you have to understand that it comes from who you are as a person and where you're doing. What's your why? You know, what are you trying to achieve in life? Do you want to just be rich and drive a nice car and be a flashy guy with a $100,000 bill and everything and a bunch of YouTube subscribers, or do you really want to help people? You know, that old lady that's sitting across the table from you, are you just going to try and get any penny you can out of her? Or are you going to get just enough to make the deal work?
So out of your experience, What do you think is the most important trait to be a successful investor,
Um,
and why?
well, to be successful in life in general, I would say you have to bow your knee to Christ and follow Him. But to take it to a level of day to day operations, you have consistency is huge battle in this business. You know, to call that person back, send them that extra letter, follow up with it. Like nobody wants to do any work. Like you have to constantly be on everybody. You know, I call every one of my contractors that are working on the job at least twice a day. What's going on? What's going this? What's that? What's this? You know, because they don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you think. You know, they'll care to this extent. You know what I mean? It's kind of I see it kind of like this. Like you take you're driving by on the street and you see it says we'll wash your car for $5, right? So you pull over, right? So you get off your car, you give them the $5. They start washing your car, and they say, "Okay, sir, it's done." And then you go over and you're like, "Hey, well, it's got soap all over it." "Oh, well, we didn't say we were gonna rinse your car." That's what freaking contractors do to you every day. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? How are you gonna not rinse the car? You know, like that's a practical way that normal people would be like, that's ridiculous. But that's what I deal with every day. You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, okay, I need to change this door here. So you gotta install a new door. Okay. So you come back and there's no doorknobs. Like, really? Well, you didn't say new doorknobs. How much are the doorknobs? You know what I mean? So you have to be on it. You have to be consistent with your marketing, with your contractors, with your day-to-day business, with keeping up with the closings, all that stuff. You got to be able to deal with the stress. You know, it's a high stress business. You're dealing with people's problems and it's all immediate. You don't have 2 months unless you're one of those investors that buy houses only off the MLS, but you're not getting any good deals. So
You mentioned Christ and your motto or your brand is Godspeed. So it's important for you. What's the advantage and disadvantages or of being a Christian investor in the business?
well, you're as a Christian, you're called to be His hands and His feet. So you're able to go and meet people and bless people. Um, Next month we're doing this huge Facebook push, and we're gonna pay for a family to catch up their payments, and we're gonna push it all over Facebook. I haven't even told you about it. This is gonna be my big Facebook push next month. So we're gonna have people submit information to us, and we're gonna catch up people's payments up to, I don't remember what we said, $2,000. So if people are behind on their payments, they're gonna submit us their story, and then we're gonna pick somebody by the end of the month before November, and we're gonna catch up somebody's payments. So you're supposed to go out there and help people, but in the business world, you have to look at business for business. You know what I mean? So you can't be just giving away money for no reason. It has to make dollars and cents, and you have to be able to do it. So don't just start in the business and say, well, I'm just going to give away all the money that I saved my whole life, or I borrow all my money and I'm going to give it away. No. You got to be smart. The Bible says, I pray that you would be smart as serpents. You know what I mean? It's like you have to pay attention, and you have to be a good steward of what you have. But I don't think I'm answering your question. Say it again. What is it that
Advantages and disadvantages
So disadvantages is, I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage, but something that other investors do is they're able to just put the screws to the nails with clients at their prices. So they'll get the best price that they possibly can get. And I won't. I'll get a good enough deal that my margins make sense. So I always make the first offer, and we go from there. So it's not necessarily the easiest route to go, but it's better long term. I think that's why I've lasted. So it gives you longevity. The Bible says is that the God's blessing have no sorrow with it. So when I do achieve it, it may be a longer road, but when I get there, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be joyful and I'm going to be peaceful and I'm not going to have a hard time sleeping at night because I just through the wake. You know what a wake is? Like when you're driving in a boat, how the water ripples behind you. The wake of your life will be blessing rather than just destruction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Like,
I think that's as good as an answer I can give you.
all right, we're all set. Thank you. You want to say goodbye to your viewers?
Goodbye, Jorge. Oh no, not you. All right, guys. Well, thank you again. We'll be back for probably some more other Q&As. I think I like this forum. It's
Yeah,
good.
we should let them do some questions for you. Maybe they have.
Yeah, shoot us some questions on the comments below. I've never said this before, but like and subscribe. Sounds crazy. So, what's that guy, Ben David? He's like, throw me the pillow. Throw me the pillow. Every one of the things. I have a pillow.
That was a bad one. Here you
I have a pillow, but it doesn't have anything on it.
go.
So we'll just put this over here. So, Jorge, put a pillow on the bottom that says subscribe. Make sure it's a pillow. No, I'm just kidding.